What's up, everybody? Once again, Gerald Brown, Heavy in the Paint. Another episode on the horizon. And again, it's all about the NBA season because it's here. It's NBA season. We got it all. We got basketball. We got baseball. We got football. But we're going to break down the NBA. And it's an honor and a privilege right now to bring on this gentleman with me. He's one of the best basketball players to ever come out of the New York City area of Harlem, one of the best point guards ever. That should have been included in point guards and all that other stuff. What he did at St. John's was incredible, and I had the fortunes and the pleasure of being right along his side and watch this whole thing play out, even back when he was in junior high school. My brother from another one of the best in the business, a true friend, and I adore him greatly, Mr. David Cain.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that intro.
Don't get too used to it, David. So, David, you know, we go at it so much in terms of when it comes to sports, and especially when it comes to the NBA. The NBA season is here, and we look at this season, and right off the bat, David, we know that obviously it's great to be back. And I think it's even more special because we just came off the New York Liberty winning the WNBA championship. But when you look at this season, Dave, I'm already having concerns to say that I can safely say the Eastern Conference is Boston and everybody else, provided no injuries happen. How do you see that East?
No, I agree with that. The way they looked last night, they looked like they was in mid-season form. The way they shot the ball.
Opening night, Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, I'm sorry. No, that was last night, right? Did I say
Tuesday night?
Tuesday night. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, and the way they shot the ball, I don't know, they with that confidence of already winning the championship behind them, I think they definitely coming out the East. And I think you're right, it's Boston and everybody else for sure.
You know what really surprised me about them in that first game? Yeah, you get your rings, and we've witnessed teams that, you know, a little sluggish. You know, it's all the hype, the hoopla, and they come out a little sluggish, and, you know, maybe they'll pull away. But what was surprising to me, Dave, and I don't know, agree or disagree, they just looked like they picked up right where they left off. And it was like no missteps or anything like that. Especially bringing back pretty much the same team. How surprised were you at the fact is how easily they made it look in terms of the cohesiveness, its chemistry, and everybody just all on one same page?
Well, I wasn't really shocked last night. From the Knicks' perspective, I knew that would take time. They're incorporating two new major pieces with Cat and Bridges. So I kind of figured it's going to take them a little bit of time to get their chemistry together. You add that with the fact everything you just said about Boston, everything we've heard on the offseason, how motivated Tatum was after the Olympic experience, how motivated Jaylen Brown was after not being on the Olympics. And I'm sure a guy like Derek White being included in the Olympics had to do great wonders for his confidence and build on what he's been established in the last 2 years. You know, and Drew was Drew. So wasn't really shocked at what happened really Tuesday night, but very impressed though, I must say.
As we head into this NBA season, we're already hearing about, surprisingly, Joel Embiid has indicated he's not going to play back-to-back. Yeah, I mean, for the rest of his career. Paul George has already been indicated that he's going to be out the first week of the NBA season due to the hyperextended knee. Dave, this is a team that was pretty much constructed with bringing in Paul George and saying, okay, look, we got Embiid, Maxey, George. We got enough that now we're going to put our hat in the ring and we're going to aim to take down the Boston Celtics. How surprised are you to hear that first from Joel Embiid, especially with a team that's trying to, you know, looking for redemption, I would say?
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, he was hurt when the season ended. He wasn't healthy in the Olympics. So him not being healthy now shouldn't be a shock to anyone. I guess the plan is not to play him as much in the regular season, to try to have him healthy in the postseason. I mean, I don't know how you build chemistry and go with that plan, but I guess they're at a point where we have to try something, man. It's been probably 5 postseasons, and I don't know if he's ever been healthy in the postseason, so I can't be mad at him for wanting to try something different, but I don't know how you build that chemistry you might need with that type of schedule like that.
Give me a surprise team in the East. You know, like last season, Orlando just pretty much surprised everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you know, young team really took great strides getting out of the play-in tournament. Excuse me. And not only getting out of the play-in tournament, but it really elevating themselves up into the playoffs. When you look at this East, and obviously it always injuries are factored in, but give me a team, David, that you got your eye on that you say will perhaps be a surprise team that either will contend for a playoff spot or perhaps maybe contend for a play-in tournament spot. In the East.
I think, well, I'm not pretty sure, but I think Cleveland has been flying under the radar. I mean, it was big. They re-signed their 2 big guys, Mobley and Mitchell. And you really haven't heard anything about them this offseason. So I think, if anything, I don't know if that's considered like a dark horse because they was in the playoffs last year. But and went to the second round, I believe, last year. But
yeah.
I think they've definitely been flying under the radar. I'm trying to think of a team who didn't make the playoffs who might can make a push this year for it.
It's hard. I give you one that
bottom really of the East is just not that impressive. So
at all. And one of the things I said, and obviously this provided that health is a factor.
Mm-hmm. I
think that there's a bottom tier team that potentially could push for a playoff team. Like I'm rooting for Chicago Bulls and Lonzo Ball. You know, thinking about the fact is that he missed 2 years with that knee injury, and if he's able to come back, and you got Zach LaVine again, redemption.
What's going on with Zach LaVine? I mean, is he healthy? Is he playing? I haven't heard his name all.
He's going to play, but I think the biggest thing was, look, Chicago made it clear that they didn't really want him. He was made available via trade deadline, but there was no takers, even in this offseason. And, you know, there's pressure has to be on LaVine, Billy Donovan, and really get that team going in the right direction because this team was putrid when it comes to talking about playing defense. But I'm going to throw out a team that might just be crazy, and, you know, people say it. I'm going to throw out the Washington Wizards, and I'm going to say the Washington Wizards from this standpoint alone. I think the Washington Wizards will perhaps maybe contend for a play-in tournament team, a spot. And the reason why, I think if you get Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, you know, among others, and Valanciunas, I believe, is there, you got some guys that have playoff experience. And if they can really pull this thing together, look, nobody's going in saying, oh, we really got to gear up to face them. They're a team that's going to surprise, perhaps can have the ability to surprise a lot of teams. And then I think the thing that works in their favor is, like we just said, the East is so weak that essentially you could get somewhere between 30, 35 wins and potentially be on the cusp of maybe contending for a play-in tournament spot. But that would be one of my teams potentially contending for a play-in tournament spot.
Well, I think instead of I would go with Chicago over Washington. For the fact is, for me, it's hard for me to believe in Washington when your 2 best players are low IQ players. And that's Poole and Kuzma. Talented, but not the greatest IQ players as far as I'm concerned. I think Chicago, I don't know if they can put it together, but I believe they do have some good pieces. Like, I don't know how long Lonzo Ball can hold up, but he looked good the other night. Kobe White was top 3 in most improved last year. I like Vucevic. You know, LaVine come back healthy. I like Josh Giddey more than most do. So I mean, they got some. I like the pieces. I don't know. Was that Patrick Williams? I mean, I would pick them for any team that didn't make the playoffs out the East last year. I would go with Chicago.
Well, they made the play-in tournament last year.
They made the play-in last year?
They made the play-in tournament along with Miami. Excuse me. They made it along with what was that?
What do you think about Miami this year? Nobody's talking about Miami either.
Yeah, they were Philly, Miami, Chicago, and Atlanta were your 4 play-in tournament teams. Toronto was right there. Toronto, Brooklyn. But I don't know. Look, Detroit, I think that Detroit has a lot to prove. You know, if this important, I think for teams like Washington and Detroit, it's important for these teams to really get off to a fast start because I think it builds confidence. And I think that worked in the favor of the Orlando Magic last year, building their confidence, especially when you're a young team. Because if you have wins in the bank, Dave, it really, really helps when you do go through those losing stretches because it's not a situation where you're finding yourself like the Pistons last year where 5 losses to turn into 10, which turns into 15. Next thing is 20. Yeah. And now it's just very, very difficult to fight to even get somewhere back to 500. So I think it's so important for those teams like that, Detroit and Washington, to get off to a fast.
I think Detroit might even be in a better situation because they added some veterans this offseason, which I think will help them out a lot. Getting to and just some veterans and professionals, having Tobias Harris there. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is there now. So they got a few guys who maybe can help them and help some of them young guys weather some of those storms there.
Yeah, like I said before, I think when I look at some of these teams in the Eastern Conference or a majority as a whole, with the exception of Boston, and maybe you can include them, I think the title redemption. You know, Detroit was terrible last year. Let's be honest. They went through a lot. Nobody believes in them or Washington. You know, Alex Sarr is a young player, stuff like that. Nobody's expecting anything from them. Atlanta is a team that made the play-in tournament, but let's be honest, it's just a matter of time where it seems like the Hawks have fallen out of favor with Trae Young.
I think Milwaukee got something to prove this year too.
But that's why I said redemption when you look at them. And I know you spoke about, I want to focus on the East and take a little time, but I know you spoke about Miami, Jimmy Butler. Look, he's got a contract that's on the line that he's trying to get an extension. When you look at the Miami Heat, I have the biggest problem with them, and that is, I think sometimes the expectations don't match the reality of the talent that they have there. Granted, they made this improbable run to
whose expectations? Whose expectations?
Well, I think a lot of people say that, well, you look at them, oh, they're a dangerous team, they're this.
But they are dangerous. They're not a top 4 team, but I think those one of those teams anybody in that top 4 don't want to see in the first round.
Well, I think they're playing tournament team. And I think a lot of that stuff they're playing tournament team.
I think they're playing tournament. They're playing tournament team because I don't think they care about the record. At least Jimmy Butler doesn't. So, that's what we had this talk earlier this week about certain teams. Everybody don't care if they're playing tournament or top 6 seed because they feel I can go get it done no matter where we at. Just put us in a dance wherever, and we'll take it from there. So Jimmy Butler's not going to overextend himself in the regular season worrying about being a top 4, top 6 seed because he feel if he's an 8 seed, he can go into a 1 seed gym and go get busy. So I don't really get caught up in the seasons like that because everybody not valuing the regular season the same way.
So when you look at Miami, what do you look at them as? Where do you see them in terms of are you saying that essentially they put no stock in the regular season, but yet it's just making sure we gear up and try to be able to be a great postseason team?
Yeah, and we've seen it. They're a better postseason team than they are a regular season team. So if I had to pick where they would finish in the regular season, I would say in the play-in. Because you got your Boston, Philly, Knicks, Milwaukee, probably your top 4. Got your Cleveland and Orlando probably right in there, and they would probably be 7 or 8. But if they are 7, I don't know if whoever at 2 would want to see them in the first round.
Well, if you look at their team, they're starting 5. I think you're talking about a potential starting 5 with Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, Butler, Jovic, and Bam Adebayo, and then you bring off this bit.
Jaquez, right? Was the kid from last year?
Jaquez, yeah, Josh Richardson, Alex Burks. Duncan Robinson.
I think they could beat anybody really besides Boston. I would if they played either one of those other 3 teams we just named besides Boston and beat them, I wouldn't be shocked. If they played Milwaukee in the first round this year, I wouldn't be shocked.
Would you say that perhaps they might be the strongest, mentally strong, the most mentally strong? Would you consider them perhaps the strongest team in that Eastern Conference? Because they've had the number of the Celtics. They definitely had the number of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's like that team that you don't really want to face, so you really can't look at their record.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You can't really judge them off what goes on in the postseason because obviously they have another level that they're capable of taking it to, and they've shown that the last few years. So, and it's unfortunate in a way because the regular season, as you start really dissecting, you start to realize it really doesn't tell you what it looks like it's telling us. You know what I'm saying? Like people are just not valuing it like that, which I get. You know what I'm saying? But that's why I don't really get caught up in what seed and such is, or who had a better record, who had the stats. Because I know history has shown us, like the Lakers went from 2 years ago, went from a playing team to the Western Conference Finals. So it's like, guys, I mean, I'm just guessing, but I think LeBron or Jimmy Butler looking at, what am I killing myself for 82 games for? All I got to do is win one road game, and we got home court advantage in a playoff series. So do I really care if I'm a 6 seed or a 2 seed? And that's kind of like that seemed like was becoming a mentality. Even with Embiid saying, I'm not playing no more back-to-backs. So obviously they're not worrying about seeding. You just like, if I'm healthy, we can beat anybody.
Well, I think, okay, let's look at Milwaukee. When you look at the Milwaukee Bucks redemption, and I think that that goes against what you're talking about. I think there's a situation where they need this regular season. They need to show a lot of people that at the end of the day, look, they were the ones that were kind of predicted last year to potentially maybe come out of the East once they got Damian Lillard. And look, it's already a situation where Chris Middleton he's going to be out. He's battling that ankle and had surgeries on that.
They've gotten to him all year long.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot older. And I think at this juncture, when you look at them, especially, look, I'm not surprised that they've lost in the first round because they've done it so much with Miami and now last year with the Indiana Pacers. How important, and again, I'm a big.
That's another team we didn't even mention. I'm sorry, we didn't even mention the Pacers.
Well, I'm going to get to them. I got you covered.
Okay.
I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you this. But when I talk about the Milwaukee Bucks, and I look at them, I'm really disappointed in Giannis's game, and easily right now, when I look at his game, I think it's regressed as opposed to progressed. When you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, how important is this regular season for them from a mental standpoint, being that they've had so much high expectations and they fell short last year?
I don't think it's so much important for them for that reason. I think really you just need reps with chemistry, I believe, with Giannis and Dame. Even I was watching a little bit of the game tonight. For some reason, they stagger their minutes a lot, and they don't play as many minutes together as I think they should. But I don't really challenge their mental toughness because you got Dame, who's probably the coldest blooded killer in the game, with ice in his veins. So I definitely don't question him. Giannis gonna give you 1,000% all the time. So I don't even question their mentality, or they just worrying about the outside noise. I don't really think Milwaukee has that problem. I just think they just you got new coach, you got second year with Dame and Giannis playing together. I just think they just need chemistry more than anything else.
Yeah. When you look at Indiana, was that a one-hit wonder? They got a lot of attention. Soft season. Spotlight is on them. And really, again, they surprised a lot of people. But when you look at them, what's the biggest thing you take away from the Pacers going into the season?
I look at them, they're a deep team. They actually have about 6 or 7 wings, which is actually this is a wing lead. And they probably gave Boston the biggest fight out of anybody. I mean, what was that, a 4-1 series if I'm not mistaken? But a couple games,
they could have game one.
Yeah, a couple games went down to the wire. Ben Mathurin, people forget Ben Mathurin was out last year. Who's tough. So I like the pieces that they got. They got a lot of bodies. And it was interesting, like the narrative last year was that they didn't play defense. And I think that was really like overstated because they gave up a lot of points with the pace they was playing. But it's not like it was a bad defensive team. So when I watched them in the playoffs, I was impressed with their defense. With Neesmith, I believe. I like the point guard.
Nembhard.
I mean, McConnell. I like their team. I like their team, man. And they're a bad matchup for a few teams. I'm not sure those top 4 teams want to see one of them in the first round either. So I think the East is pretty good, better than what most people think. Like, we got a good 8 in the East. It's just that bottom group makes the East not as competitive. But if you just want to talk about a good solid 8, you got some hell of a playoff matchups.
Yeah, I mean, no, that is very interesting. You say that. When I look at the Pacers, look, their thing was they really, again, shot the ball incredibly well, all that stuff, and look, they had a lot of success, and they surprised a lot of teams. And I've always questioned that when you surprise teams that following year, now teams are going to gear up and say, okay, we got to get ready for them. And, they should have won a game in that series against Boston. Remember, I think they had to play down the stretch. They stole the ball, something like that, but they got swept. And it's a young team. But I just question the fact is, can they do it again? Because they had the matchups in their favor, right? They faced Milwaukee, was decimated by injuries. They faced New York, and then, that was such a grind of a series.
Decimated by injuries also, yeah.
Yeah, decimated by injuries, and then you turn around and have that happen. So I just question if they could do it again. When you look at the Knicks, we wrap up on this Eastern Conference and switch quickly to the Western Conference. When you look at the Knickerbockers, got off to a sluggish start against Boston. Karl Anthony Towns, 12 points. Really, they were out of the game before they even started. It's one of those games where, look, Boston shot the light out. Yeah, just throw it away, and obviously, don't judge them on that game. But I want to do that. But when I look at them, Dave, I look at the Knicks and say, as much as you look at how much effectiveness of Karl Anthony Towns, a great name, good, is a name. He's brought a lot, but does he fit? He's great when he can do that pick and pop and he can shoot those threes. That's excellent. But can he be that guy that's a pick and roll that with Isaiah Hartenstein, with Mitchell Robinson, those guys that are rim runners, guys that's also defensively a presence? When I look at Karl Anthony Towns, I think he's more offensively made in with this team than defensively. How do you look at this team, this Knicks team?
I like him. I don't like the trade, but I understood why they did it. With Mitchell Robinson being hurt, losing Hardesty, he wanted a 7-footer. But I think losing some of their depth, giving up Randall and DiVincenzo for Towns, I wasn't really a big fan of. I think Cat could be some of those things that you just mentioned, but watching that first game, they wasn't using him like that. So I don't understand. Like, if you're gonna have him in pick and rolls, and there's never gonna be any rim running, if it's just gonna be pick and pops, then we're not really taking advantage of his size. And I was really disappointed the other night because I couldn't believe they had Drew Holiday guarding them, and they really didn't exploit that on the block. Now, this is the same problem Philly had a few years ago. Like, who are we blaming for this? Is the coach not calling whatever plays, whatever, to get the player the ball on the block, or is it the player refusing to go down to the block? Like, what's the issue? What's the point of me going to get a 7-footer if we're not going to have no post presence? We could have just kept Julius Randle for that. You know what I'm saying? So I think potentially he could be something. I just don't understand what's the system or what's the game plan, because if he's going to just spend 3/4 of the game on the 3-point line, then I don't know what they're doing there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of high expectations.
One other thing real quick on that game, very disappointed in OG and Obi too. You just got $200 million. Did he score last night? I mean, Tuesday night?
You know what?
I can't even remember. 6 points maybe the most?
If he did score, and if he was, did he get in the scoring column? The biggest thing is it wasn't impactful.
Yeah, so no impactful in the game. And y'all supposed to be 3 elite perimeter defenders with him, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart. And there was no signs of that. So,
well, think about it this way. Between Bridges and Anunoby, their first game combined 20 points. And they both were pretty much 8 of like 20-something shots, 8 of 20-something shots. Not really good at all. Okay. So it was really, and then 2 of 11 from the 3-point line.
Unfortunately, a lot of it looked like last year, just the burden on Brunson and the carry. And
right.
So, and it's like you added these pieces, and it's still the same. Should have took some of the burden off of Brunson. So I'm interested to see as things progress, how it moves along.
Yeah, and now we go over to the Western Conference real quickly, Dave. I look at that West. It's very hard for me, as I've always said to you, to pick the top 4 teams because it's all about matchups. When I look at Denver, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Golden State, well, even include Golden
Phoenix,
State,
Dallas, Lakers,
Dallas,
Houston,
Sacramento, New Orleans, Memphis,
Sacramento,
It's so many teams that, barring any injuries, I think that clearly this will be one of those, pretty much like you talked about. It doesn't matter where you finish, because still in all, like and then let me take that back, because I think it doesn't really matter where you finish if I'm thinking about it correctly, but it's all about matchups, right?
Yeah,
because I think you can finish in the ace, you can finish in the plan and then run the table, but it's all about matchups when it comes to the West, and I think that's all the way across the board. When you look at this West as a whole, what do you really stands out to you about this division, a conference?
How deep it is. First of all, like you said, we probably was it 15 teams in it. We probably named 13 or 14 that got a chance to really be in the playoffs. That's how deep it is. It might be like a few years ago, if you remember. I think seed 3 and seed 8 was like a 3-game difference. You know what I'm saying? Or you had like 6 or 7 teams that might have had 50 wins or something crazy like that. So I think it's that type of conference this year. I think matchups. But I like Dallas. I think I already told you I like Dallas coming out of there, because I think anytime you get on the court and you pretty much got the best player, I think maybe with the exception of Joker, Luka's going to be the best player on the court out of any series that they have. So when you have the best player, I usually lean towards that. They made it to the finals last year. I believe they got better this offseason. Another year of chemistry. I think from what I'm hearing, Lively's progression. You got was that Washington and Gafford in the middle of the year last year and did that. Now you have a whole training camp with that. So I believe Dallas is the one coming out the West this year.
Think about it this way. The last seed to get in the play-in tournament in the West, it took 46 wins, Golden State. To get in the play-in tournament in the East, it took 36 wins. That's a 10-game difference. Yeah. So right there just goes to show, essentially, like if you're Houston, you won 41 games. You were in the tournament in the Eastern Conference and stuff. But give me a surprise team out of that Western Conference, Dave, that provided that, you know what, they potentially, that weren't a playoff team last year, potentially could make that next leap up and be in the play-in tournament team, let alone playoffs.
I think people have kind of forgotten about Memphis. I think Ja's been off the radar. I think people really forget how explosive, how great he is. I mean, before Ant Edwards' ascension, it was all about Ja Morant in that space before he, off the court issues. But they were way better. Obviously they had injuries and suspensions and everything last year. But when you bring Ja back with Desmond Bane and Jackson, they added the rookie Zach Edey. So we'll see how he pans out. So, but I think they might be the sleeper, man, because same thing how I feel about Luka, similar to Ja. Like when you got one of those, how we used to say, one of those guys, that accounts for a lot. That make up for a lot of things you might be lacking in. You even see when he came back from his injury, his suspension last year, how he was just carrying them game winners and just putting work in before he got hurt. So I think that redemption thing we talking about in the East, I believe he's coming back on a mission this year.
Yeah, I look at, I got a team. I got Houston, because Houston, it took some time to figure things out and really establishing the roles. And remember, they went on a nice run, towards the close of the season. And then obviously they fell back, lost a couple of games, but they had dug themselves such a big hole. But I like the work that Emi Udoka has done with that team. They do have that mixture of young players and veterans. And then also, too, I think Alfred Sengun is such a dominant player, dynamic player that's going to be even more dynamic going into the season and dominant So I look at Houston to really, really step up. Is this the end for the Golden State Warriors and the Clippers?
As far as winning the championship?
Well, winning the championship, I mean, clearly winning championship, but merely just, if anything, consider them playoff teams?
They're definitely still be in a fight for the play-in tournament. Obviously, I don't think neither one of them will be a top 6 seed, and I don't think it would be because they're just taking the regular season, not as serious like we were speaking about with some other teams. I just think that's just what level they're at. The Clippers, without Kawhi, is not going to be able to do it, and I just don't think Steph has enough help, man. He's not getting any younger. I mean, he's still great, but that's a lot to ask him to try to carry that all the way through a playoff run. I just don't see that for them at this point.
Who is your biggest disappointment? Give me a disappointment team in the West that will be disappointed. And I'll give you one. I'll start off one. I'm not really believing in the Phoenix Suns. I think the biggest thing with them is, look, they're going to be able to score, right? Mm-hmm. Hands down. But, the best ability is availability. And Bradley Beal has really struggled to stay healthy. You look at Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. I just think that clearly because of those 3 contracts, it's really hamstrung them. Now, look, they got Tyus Jones that's in there. I like Nurkic, but I just don't see enough off that bench to be able to sustain them. And it's really all about their offensive scoring. Look, they won 49 games last year. I think they will step back.
That was still good. That was
very good.
For a season of turmoil, injuries, first year together, that wasn't a bad year. Like you said, they might have just caught a bad matchup. So I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Minnesota hammered them in that first round.
They was
too big.
A bad matchup for them. So right. I mean, so I hate to say this to you, but maybe Sacramento. Because it's like, all right, they added some pieces. They added DeRozan. They had, this thing like 2 years ago, when they took Golden State to 7, it was like we was on a start or something, and it's kind of like leveled out right now. I don't think Keegan Murray took the leap we was looking for. I'm not the biggest Sabonis fan in the postseason, so I'm kind of like 50-50 with them right now.
I've said before, I wish that they would have been able to go out and get a big and really try to slide a brim protector, slide Sabonis over the 4. I think he's most effective if he's at that 4 spot, provided you bring in the right type of fit in the big.
I don't know if he can guard the 4s, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, but I like him more at the 4 than the 5. I just don't see him, at that 5 spot because that's a lot of wear talent. It's not a good matchup for him. So
I disagree with that. I think the guy has 7. I mean, he broke the double-double record last year, right?
He broke the double-double, but you know what? When they play teams, certain teams, and look, out in the West, if you're going to win, you're going to have size, right? Because the Joker's there. You got Anthony Davis there.
He's 7 feet.
Yeah, but I mean, he just
physical.
He looked very small when he compared against them. Oklahoma City, Dave, they surprised a lot of people last year, including yours truly. They won 57 games, and Dave, they went from essentially 40 wins to 40 wins. Actually 40 some wins. I think it was 42 wins or 46 wins to essentially 57 wins. That was amazing, right? I think that was truly, truly amazing to add that many type of wins and still a relatively young team. And then they add Isaiah Hartenstein, who's going to be out for some time to start the season. But David, I love the Oklahoma City Thunder. How big of a surprise, or do you think they can do it again and remain a top-tier team?
I think so. I think what you didn't mention. You mentioned Hartenstein. You didn't mention Alex Caruso.
Alex Caruso, very
I think that's a major pickup and underrated because what you really have now, as good as OKC is, I think people don't realize how great defensively they are. If you can put Dort, Shea is pretty good. You got Dort, you had Caruso, Jalen Williams, you got Chet back there. So I mean, I think they can do it because their success is not just predicated on offense. So
yeah, they won 40 games. Like that what you call them? They won 40 games 2 years ago. 40 games, and then you jump from 40 games to 57.
Well,
and look, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander clearly should have been MVP last year, but
you added Chet Holmgren. SGA took a leap, and Jalen Williams took a leap. You know what I'm saying? So
right, he took another leap, but he still he was consistent that 23-24, and then took that to it showed it again. So he developed the level of consistency, SGA, in his game.
No, he took it that to 30.
Yeah. I mean, he took it to another level. I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
he took it to another level.
And I consider him one of those dudes also. So, like, and you look at most teams, those the ones that one of those dudes where like we just need to get one. Like, he's just really unstoppable offensively. He can get a bucket pretty much at any time, and that matters because once you get to the postseason and we scheming and the defense and all that, sometimes it ain't no offense. It's just great one-on-one offense. We're just going to beat great defense, and he's one of those guys also. So I think they can duplicate it, and they're young enough to take the regular season serious too. So
yeah, who do you have in the playoffs? And I know a lot of people scratch their heads and say we haven't mentioned the Lakers, but give me your teams that are not playoff teams in the Western Conference. Aside, we already know Utah. Well, I wouldn't even say Utah.
Utah, probably Portland, probably San Antonio.
Those three.
If I had to pick another one, Golden State.
Okay.
4. What is it? Got to be one more. What is it? And
yeah,
it probably I probably had to be Houston. Houston might finish one spot back again this year. If I had to pick it,
so you have Houston not in.
Yeah, because I don't like them better than Sacramento, OKC, or Memphis, or the Lakers.
Okay, so we say Portland, Houston, San Antonio, Portland, Houston, San Antonio,
Golden State,
and who's your 15?
Utah.
Okay, I'm gonna go Portland, clearly. San Antonio, I'm just not believing and again, the impact of CP3, I think is going to be minimal. It will have some impact, but again, they'll be all right. It's just another step for them.
Get 10 more. They get 7, 8, 10 more games this year. Win 30. That's a good year for them.
Yeah, Portland, San Antonio. I'm not really Utah. If Markkanen can stay healthy, I think they'll be on the cusp of that. But I'm gonna say, for the argument's sake, I'm gonna put the Portland, San Antonio, Utah. I'm gonna say Golden State is my 4th team, and I just think, like you said before earlier, you know what? Look, they've run their course. It's Steph and the others and stuff like that, and I think it's gonna be an adjustment period for that. And just again, if they could be able to stay healthy, but I just don't think they have enough ammunition to get it done. That would be that's my 4th team. And my 5th team, it's a toss-up, and there's a reason why. It's a toss-up between the Clippers, because of Kawhi in and out, for them to be able to develop that chemistry.
I think I would take Houston over the Clippers if Kawhi is out. Like you said, depending on, that's a good pick.
And then, like New Orleans, you lose Valanciunas, right? And now you add DeJounte Murray, and you move CJ McCollum to that 2 spot. Well, that's still kind of small at the 2, but I think this is a make or break season. Look, Brandon Ingram has got he's looking for a contract.
Free agent, yeah. If Zion's healthy, they in the playoffs.
They're in the playoffs.
So they got the health issue too, worrying about Zion.
Exactly, the health issue. And then how do you fill that spot in the middle? That 5 spot. Like, this is the West. The Joker's there, AD's there, Gobert's there. I mean, it's
did they not pick anybody up? I don't.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't even know who they got to even put in the middle serviceable.
Exactly. So when I look at them, that is just my biggest cause for concern because they're playing Herb Jones at the 5.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah, so that right there would be my 5 teams.
So New Orleans is your 15?
Yeah, I think that would be my 15 that potentially would not make the playoffs.
But you had 4, so you had the Clippers and you had New Orleans. So one of them got to be in, one of them got to be out.
I had the Clippers. Well, I said okay. So I mean, it's a toss-up. I really say, if anything, I could look at potentially I think more than anything, health. I would say maybe the Clippers take a step back. You know, James Harden, can he really carry that load, which he once did before? That remains to be seen. You know,
I don't think so.
And that is going to be huge for them moving forward. Who is your teams in the NBA Finals, David?
Dallas and Boston.
Redo part 2.
Yeah, I believe so. With Boston repeating.
I'm going to take a leap of faith. I don't think it's going to be Boston. I'm going to say it's New York.
I wouldn't be mad at that.
You know, part of me wants to say it's either New York and Denver.
I'm just thinking that Denver's been under the radar too.
But I question if their window of opportunity has closed. You know,
you got the best player in the league, so you're never gonna be too far off. So
yeah, but matchups in that West, it's just too much of a gauntlet. But
it's not the same. It's not 2 7-footers no more neither. So
yeah, I would say maybe New York and OKC. You know,
okay.
I think OKC, you know, provided Hartenstein and could come back and stay healthy with Holmgren, and now you SGA and then Williams and then Caruso. I mean, they're really, really loaded, you know, and that would be it, man. You know,
not a bad pick.
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate it, man. We definitely got to do this again. The NBA season here. Always love you, man. Appreciate your time. Man. David Cain, one of the best in the business. It's heavy in the paint. Peace.
Peace.